Hey, Regina, can you hear us? Did you get a hard copy? Yeah. Did you get a hard copy?
No.
All right. I brought some too. I have extra if you need them. I printed them on big paper. Hopefully. Which version are we on? I want to think by council rules, the council president chairs this meeting typically, unless you all decide to do something different. Regina, can you hear us? That's fine. I think that's typically what we do, though.
Yeah.
Or what did I? Regina, can you hear us?
Yes.
Awesome.
No, I can.
Great. We'll start in a moment. We have one alder that's on their phone out in the hallway, so when that person's ready, we'll get started.
Okay.
All right, we'll start the meeting to order. It's Thursday, August 14th of 2025. This is our Capital Improvement Plan Committee, or as we call it, the CIP Committee. We have a call to order. We do have a quorum. It looks like we have Reeves is absent and excused, and who else are we missing? Alder Jensen is absent and excused, and Jonathan I didn't see on yet, so he would. Oh, he's on. No, that's Jordan. Jonathan's absent and excused. But we do have a quorum, so we can get started. And then we are certified in compliance with open meeting laws. And then we do have to elect a chair and a vice chair. And as we were talking about earlier, I think the council rules say that traditionally the council president is chair, but you can all do what you want. I would open up the floor for nominations for the chair.
I'll nominate President Schumacher, chair.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
My
Motion
abstention.
carries. All right.
Weird.
So we'll turn it over to you for the election of the vice chair.
All right. Okay, this is the nomination for a vice chair, and that would be, if I have any untimely demise. Are there any nominations for a vice chair?
I'll nominate Alder Butler for vice chair. Second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. I can vote this time. Any opposed?
Abstain.
All right. Okay, Patrick, here. I'm going to turn it over to you. So first action that we have is to approve the minutes from August 21st, 2024. Does everybody remember in great detail about what we did back then?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, motion by Sarah. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Patrick. Anybody want to make any edits in there or creative ideas into it or anything? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay.
And any opposed? All right, minutes are accepted. Let's go ahead. Lisa T, are you running the budget overview?
I am.
Fantastic.
We just updated the presentation from last year, so it'll be similar, shorter. So on the second page, we go through the timeline of the meetings. Obviously today, August 14th, we'll be hearing from IT, Fire EMS, and the finance, and we'll cover the municipal court. The following week, August 21st, we'll see planning, library, police, and public works. That is currently scheduled at 7 o'clock. And these are usually the longer ones with public works. We're hoping maybe that can change to 6, depending on the public works committee meeting. And then if needed, August 28th, we would finalize if we don't finalize that on the 21st. And then the final version would be approved at the council on November 11th. Oh, happy birthday then. Right, if we want to go to the next page. So goals and objectives. So we're going to review the projects. It's a summary of 2026. So next year that will be our true focus, but looking at a 5-year plan. And we'll show the money that is available, how it will be funded, if there's any offsetting revenues. So each leader will present their own requests for the 2026 to 2030, and then you as a committee can determine if those projects that they have, you want to keep them, postpone it, or just remove them altogether. The next is just a department summary by year, so focusing on 2026 right now as we have it. We'd be looking to have a debt issue of approximately $13.5 million with the projects that are currently in that. 2027 gets a little higher to at just over 14 million. We did meet with departments and reviewed their CIP before we got to this point. We did make some changes. 2026 was a lot higher than that, but we did shift some to 2027 and some other movements. Obviously, looking at 2028 to 2030, you see a big decrease, but that's because it's further out and so many unknowns at this point. Then the following slide is the funding summary. So like at the very top, there is some TID 8 projects. You'll see that will be a debt issue, but it'll be funded by TID 8. And so this summarizes by the year, and then it shows some offsetting revenues as well, whether it be fund balance or a carry forward. Some might be for sale of a vehicle, equipment. Noting that in the past, it doesn't seem that any sale of equipment or vehicles was used to offset and decrease the debt issue. Some of it went to the general fund. So that's something we'll look at. Preferably, I would like to see that in the 410 or whatever asset fund that it's being funded through to offset that. Just because if you look at the police, they actually trade in their vehicles. So what they request is with that trade-in. So we're issuing less debt for their vehicles because of that trade-in. So looking at that the same, if they're just selling a vehicle, it should offset the replacement vehicle. And then on the following page, we just have some staff recommendations. These are the same from what Dave had last year, targeting 11 to 12 million total for the 2026 CIP. And for streets, we did update this a little bit, 6 to 8 million for street improvement projects. And that has a lot to deal with the general transportation aids. As I believe everyone is aware, we're going to see a reduction in that aid in 2026 because the public works building falls off that 6-year average that we look at. So we'll see that those revenues lower, but so we try to maintain a target amount so we don't see those fluctuation in that aid payment. But that is not just solely made up of the capital improvement projects. It's also including operating. There's some that include police and storm in that total. So that is it for the presentation. If there's any questions right away.
On about 3 pages before, the debt issues are broken out. Are each of those sold separately, so to speak, or is the full 13 million done as a single debt issue?
It's normally done as a single debt issue. With PID 8 and the type of project, we'll be speaking to bond counsel about that. When it deals with private activity, it can become a taxable issue, so we issue the rest on a tax-exempt basis. But with it being potentially private activity or a portion of it, some of that may have to be issued separately.
All right, we got no other questions in it. And I guess we can go straight into departmental presentations for CIP, and looks like we've got IT and media up first.
Our requests are all pretty simple and they're pretty standard that we do every year. We're looking for some media upgrades or network upgrades here that I'm going to be discussing. Derek will go over the media side. For networks, we do have our usual computer replacements. We have moved from a 3 to a 5-year cycle for replacing computers now due to the fact that we've gotten 5-year warranties now. So We just don't want anything go out of warranty when we can keep costs down. We have changed it a little bit too, because every 3 years, we're also replacing monitors, just to keep everything paired up correctly, working correctly for all of the end users here. Network upgrades, we're asking a little bit more for 2026 due to the fact that we have some hosts that have come to end of year. Excuse me. And what a host is, it houses our virtual servers. And we have 2 of them here, and then we have one of the oldest ones in our disaster recovery site. And so what we do then is when we take and we replace these hosts, we take the production ones, move that to disaster recovery, bring in a new host environment into production. And we're also looking at changing that host production because we've scaled down our storage needs and our application needs because so many things have moved to the cloud. We may be going from a physical, what they call a VNX host, or ESXi host and VNX server or storage, to a hyperconverged environment. So that would be your hosts and the servers and the storage all contained within a single unit. That is more the direction that technology has been going. A lot of it is going to be kind of dependent upon some other CIP asks this year to see what we can reduce down in storage. Then also included in the network upgrades is the usual switches that we go through, and once they hit end of life, we rotate those out. Access controller or wireless access points and things like that, once they hit end of life, we go and replace those. Pretty straightforward on the network.
And then on the media side for next year, we're looking at replacing our broadcasting equipment. We were told this year that at the end of next year, our broadcast server hits end of life. So we need to replace that. And that'll come with some other equipment as well. And then we're also talking about upgrading security cameras in the Opera House, the fire station, and the senior center out of our budget. Those are all still coax cameras and have met end of life about 10 years ago. Any questions?
I just had one for John. When you guys are upgrading the PCs and laptops and whatever else are out there, do you go for just kind of middle of the road type of things, or like, the business machine, or are these higher end to keep that 5-year warranty reasonable as far as like functionality of them?
They're not high end, pretty much middle of the road. They're all small form factor.
Got it.
HP computers. The only configuration changes to the machines, we will beef them up depending upon the person, their responsibilities. For instance, in finance and planning, we give them, i7, i9 processors. We beef up the RAM in them just to handle that computer capacity.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then as far as like operating system, those are all are they version locked, or do you have an image that you put out onto all of them, or are they kind of a mixed bag of things?
The OS, the operating system itself, is strictly, out of the box.
Okay.
The individual configurations of the machine, again, depends upon what software do they need on it, and then we tailor it to the individual's responsibilities.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have any questions for IT media?
Just a point of curiosity, where is the DR hosted?
Tell you that.
You can't tell? Oh, okay.
No, it's in the basement of City Hall. The production side of it is in the basement of the Opera House. And the thought is, well, yeah, if a 2005 tornado comes in here, it's going to wipe it all out anyway. But we're going to be actually moving the DR site cloud. We want to get it off there because it's a lot cheaper than doing a colo in another facility.
I only ask because I deal with ER at my day job, so.
We figure too, the basement of the Opera House, there's, the fire suppression in there is a sprinkler. Yeah, and it's a wooden ceiling. But in the basement of, City Hall, it's underground and it's surrounded by concrete. Chances are nothing's gonna happen.
All right, anybody else? Last chance. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Welcome.
All right, Chief Rip, Fire and EMS next.
Regina, can you see Josh's?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm not sure why Lisa's didn't show up for you, but at least Josh's is, and there wasn't.
It did it after, it did when you futzed with it. I was only seeing the agenda initially, and then Lisa kept on talking, and it never switched to hers until I messaged you, and then all of a sudden it did.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks for letting us know.
Evening, everyone. Budget request, and this is both for EMS and fire departments. So this is the next slide is kind of the totality of the list of everything we're working on over the course of the entirety includes through 2030, which are a couple of fairly pricey items. Trucks are getting more and more expensive every time we go, it seems like. So, Tim, next one. So on the EMS side, we've got just a few things: ambulance cot replacement, addition of some tactical vests, and then the annual rotation of the mobile data computers that are in the ambulances. In keeping with IT's recommendations, while they're moving to the computers in the buildings being at 5 years, we're still trying to keep the computers that are in the vehicles at that 3 to 4 year mark, because they are running 24/7, and the suspensions of most of our trucks really pound the computers pretty hard. So we're constantly chasing problems with them. And this keeps that to a minimum as we move ahead. Tactical vests are for some important things that are coming down the road that we've got to be aware of safety-wise. So the vests that we're looking at EMS are going to be a little different from what we're buying for fire, because they're looking at a little bit lighter duty vest that the EMTs can wear more day-to-day, similar to how law enforcement does, just because we're starting to run into patient safety issues as EMTs are going in. So there's going to be a little difference in that. And then ambulance cot replacement. All of our ambulances have a powered cot and have had for close to 15 years. That batch of cots, we have absolutely rotated them around as much as we can, and they are, again, end of life, but we're constantly having the repair technicians in to work on one or more of them at any time. So the new ambulance is coming with a brand new cot. And so the following year, we're going to retrofit the second oldest ambulance with a new cot that'll match that one. And then in 27, there's another ambulance scheduled toward the end of that year. That'll get a new cot. So over 3 years, we'll have gotten all 3 cots replaced. Next, Tim. All right, fire capital requests. We're a little more equipment heavy. Some of this is building maintenance. PPE, we do an annual purchase every year of 10 sets of gear. Gear is getting more expensive. We've just transitioned to buying the PFA-free gear as much as we can. There's still some components that aren't, but it's only because the manufacturers are still trying to figure out how to make things, the material PFA-free, and still keep the characteristics that they're trying to get out of the gear for heat resistance, moisture resistance, all of that. Buying a hose tester this year, we have historically done hose testing using the trucks to pressurize the hose. It's a bad model. Some of the pressures we have to test the hose is really hard on the truck pumps. And at $50,000 to replace a pump, a $5,000 hose tester seems a little more appropriate to do it. We've borrowed a neighboring community's hose tester, but as we're trying to trade it back and forth and each of us get our hose testing done, we're like, we'll get our own so that we can get things done. MDC computer, same thing. Every one of the trucks has a computer in it, so we're replacing 3 to 4 every year just to keep the rotation going and keep the computers reliable. Floor scrubber, this is as part of the addition of the full-time staff. We are taking over the cleaning here in the next month or two completely, so the janitorial staff that the city has can concentrate on other buildings a little more. And this has been part of the plan with them anyways, but this way we can more efficiently and better in the wintertime scrub some of the floors in the main building as well as the bay floors out in the fire bay. There's not a really good way to scrub them without having a machine that has an agitating pad. Door lights. If you've driven past the fire station, you probably have noticed that there's 3 doors that have red lights that kind of backlight the trucks off of Main Street. Those lights are actually tied into the door opening. So when they're red, we don't drive through or attempt to drive through the door because it's not ready. When the door is all the way open, they turn green, and that's a signal for the operators to pull through the door. And that's becoming more of a standard. We haven't had a problem at the fire station yet because we have a whole lot of door to mess with. We have had, down at EMS, we have inches of clearance, and anytime a door fails to open up completely, it catches the top of ambulance. So we've had problems down there and have a version of this. We're looking at upgrading it for next year as well. Conference rooms, chairs. We've got our meeting room there. The chairs that are in there are original from when we moved into the building in 2007, and we're just trying to get those swapped out. And then the meeting room, we'd replaced the tables last year. This year we're doing the chairs for that. And then the outdoor warning siren. This is the next siren in the series that we're looking at buying. 27, we have planned to do one more siren, and that should get coverage across the city pretty well and should cover a lot of the growth areas as well for quite a while before we should have to add another siren. So that's a total of 3 by the time we get there. So walking through the replacement cots, next one, Tim. This is what you see. Using buttons, we can raise and lower the cot. When I started in EMS, this was all done manually. So no matter how big the patient was, it was on the EMTs and whoever was around to physically lift the cot and let the legs drop. We'd get into the ambulance, get the end caught, and then pull it release. We'd have to pull the legs up and then load it in the rig. And this has been a giant back saver, and that's really what it is. It just saves a whole lot of money and EMT careers by not busting backs. Tim, next.
Chief, those cots, the ones that you're going to retire out of there,
Yep.
any chance that those can go into auction maybe, or?
Yep. Yeah, we're going to be everything we have surplus typically will go to Wisconsin surplus, and
Yep.
they'll get sold off somewhere.
Sure.
So someone will make use of them. I have no idea how much money we're going to get, but we take pretty good care of them, so probably better than most.
Unless you want to have cot races down Roby Hill.
And we will be buying we will be keeping one of the old cots because we've got a simulation mannequin that we got a grant for, which is a very smart device that we can program scenarios into. It's easier to have a cot to haul that around, and that thing is to the tune of $50,000 worth of mannequin. So it's better to have it on an old cot, but we can keep the old one and not have an issue that way. So the EMS cots, each one between the cot and the track is about $80,000 once it's installed. Next, Jim. The vest, same thing, the RTFs, and what we talked about with the just going into patients' houses and everything. We don't always know what's there. And law enforcement is getting busier and busier, so they're not always available to lead the way ahead of us. So, next.
How many of us is that, Josh?
What vest? We're estimating that will get us, that should get us 5 or 6 vests, which will get the primary crew, should get first 2 ambulance crews covered. Caveat being sizing, we can buy a size that is a fits most, and then we have to get a couple small ones and a couple really, really big ones. But most of them fit most everybody.
Those are, I'm assuming those are not, they're not bulletproof, but probably puncture proof?
They're puncture proof, and they are small handgun resistant. The ones we got on the fire side will take a higher caliber. They all can take plates. The fire ones, we bought plates with them originally. EMS, we may get plates down the road, but because they can carry them, but they're not going to come with them right away.
I hate that we even have to talk about that, but I mean, it happened. So.
Yep. Yeah, and more often, sadly, we're seeing it across the county. MDCs, we're just kind of changing things out, and as the computer models change, we sometimes have to replace out the docking stations that go with them. They don't all fit correctly. So next, okay. So PPE, and some of it out of that 75,000, the vast majority is the structural firefighting gear that you typically see us in, but it does include an amount that will go into our swift water, surface water rescue, rope rescue gear as well that ties in together. We've got people that have been going through the swift water classes, and our surface water rescue stuff is starting to get aged out, so we're going to try and do like 2 suits a year and keep that on a rotational basis like we're doing with our structural gear. Last time we changed out, we had to do all 10 of our ice rescue suits in one shot, and that's a fair chunk of money. And then they all wear out at the same time.
At
Training.
the replacement rate that you're going through them, how soon do you think you'll be PFA free on them?
It'll be, we start probably 7 years, because it's the bunker gear has a 7-year lifespan. So it's 2 to 3 years ago that we started buying as PFA free as possible. But the stuff that wasn't should age out in we got about 7 years left on that.
All right.
And I should know this, but I don't remember. Does the station have the gear cleaning equipment and everything?
Yep. We've got an extractor. In fact, a few years ago, we upgraded the extractor to a slower one that doesn't destroy the gear quite as fast. So, chairs in the training room, we $26,000 for that. There's 30 chairs in there. I'm sorry, not 30. It's 30 tables that we did, and all the chairs to kind of fill out in there. What we're seeing is that the sliders on the chairs plastic pieces are coming off, because again, they're all original. And rumor has it some of them were hand-me-downs from another spot before we got them. So it's just trying to get that rotated out and save the carpet in there a little bit as we go. So this is the one big ticket item. Our ladder truck was purchased in 2003 for $850,000, give or take. That same truck to buy today, Cottage Grove just signed a contract last year for one, different configuration than ours, but $2.3 million by the time they get it in 4 years. So next year, the plan is for us to start the replacement process, put a down payment of some time out. We're still looking at trying to get from manufacturers if a 25% down payment is appropriate, or if there's other ways less and pay more at the end, or however one wants to do it. I've talked to some salespeople, and they've thrown every number variation past that they'll do just because they're trying to sell trucks, just because they're trying to. So the cost of the truck is going up for various reasons. One of the big ones is in 2027, the new regulations for EPA go into effect for the engines, the diesel engines, and that is adding a significant cost to the price of the truck, to the point where they can't really even tell us how much. We just know we have like an engine choice. We either get from one company the kind of big engine or the bigger engine, and that's about it. Sometimes we have two manufacturers, but when that new stuff goes into effect, it's really going to limit our choices, which limits our ability to kind of shop for better pricing on the motors that drive the truck. But again, it'll be four-year delivery, which puts the truck anticipated delivery 2030, which means the truck, by the time we get rid of it, will be 28-ish years old. So we did put some money into it, anticipating this length of time a couple years ago, but this is just kind of what we're running into.
Are we still looking for financing options as far as
Yeah.
that $500,000 number we talked about?
Yeah,
the other day?
that's going to be, I'm still waiting for some numbers to come back from sales as they talk to their finance people on what options are.
So this is a placeholder. We don't know if it's going to change. Hopefully it'll go down.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, we're going to replace it, and it's going to be over $2 million
Right.
one year or another.
And just as a note, there's for this truck, part of the reason why why it's good for us to have it, our ISO rating is a 3 in the city, which is pretty darn good for department our size. And in order for the ladder truck to count, it has to be within 12 miles of the city center. So McFarland, Cottage Grove, and not even Edgerton. Edgerton got rid of theirs. Their ladder truck's coming out of Milton. There isn't a ladder close enough. We've talked to Oregon about possibly working together with them on it, because they're growing enough that they would like to have a ladder. We would have to park it out on 138 somewhere in order for it to count for both of our communities to meet that 12-mile thing. So we're kind of stuck. And for us, experience tells us that if we don't get the ladder truck in some of these buildings, God forbid, one of our many homes, big senior buildings, that if we don't get it in there right away, close to the building, we're not going to get it in there because we're going to start laying hose down, and it just limits our access. So next.
I think this one,
Next.
when I was first on council, I think we saw this one, or we knew it was coming up to replace.
Mhm.
And I think it was 1.6 million at that time. So even
Yep.
just a short period of time, and that's what it has come up.
Yeah, there's a lot of things feeding into it. We just are kind of trying to stay ahead of it as we can. And we're working on an engine right now, designing it to hopefully order it by the end of the year. I never thought I would be paying $1 million for an engine, but because when I started in the fire service, a really expensive ladder truck was just barely $1 million. So I don't know if that says about me or the world, but
I promise I won't geek out. We could be here until midnight, just me asking you questions, but just for the benefit of everyone, there are generally kind of suggested replacement timelines.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to share those so that,
Yeah,
to
so-
provide the
Yeah,
context?
NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, is who we get our guidelines from. And while they're not all, some of them are law by reference, other ones are just legal recommendations to where we don't have to until you end up in court, and then other lawyers bring it up as reasons why you should have done it a certain way. Generally, they say 20-year lifespan on a vehicle, which is why we're trying to keep it with the engines. The practice has been to extend the life of ladder trucks a little bit longer because of just the insane cost that they are. And our truck, we're in really good shape now that we dumped the money in, but once we hit that 30-year mark, there's a lot of computers that are on in that, and we're already at the edge of the technology cliff where some of the modules, if they go out, we're going to have to send them to Joe's computer module repair shop up in Oshkosh, which is a subsidiary of Oshkosh, I'm sure. But it's somebody's garage that rebuilds these modules all the time because nobody makes them in a commercial aspect. So I know Oregon had to do that for one of their engines. I don't like relying on my people's lives on Joe and his soldering skills, but maybe he's pretty good. Next one, Tim. So this is just a list of the rolling stock. We have a lot of equipment. There's no doubt about it. But it's all there for a specific purpose between pumping, ladders, equipment to the scene, brush trucks, and all of that. So just a note to the future, Tim. SCBAs are one of those things that we've got coming up in 27. The tanks that we have are limited by the federal DOT to a maximum life of 15 years, and that hits us at 2027. That also, the air packs are built to the same NFPA. There's a batch of rules that apply to the air packs, and they redo those every 3 to 5 years. And once you get past 3 to 5 rotations of those rules, the air packs start getting not supported. And we have noticed that we are sending air packs in quite a bit for repairs now. So when we get to 27 and swap out, we're going to be, I think, pushing the limits of what our air packs are capable of safely. Another thing for training facilities, it's just one of those things out there when we try and do practice. If anyone's seen around the station, we do hose testing. Pete Gander does an amazing job trying to get 300 feet of hose on the ground for testing without impacting a parking lot on one side and Jefferson Street on the other, running hose through the station and shuffling trucks. But it really, it would be great to have a parking lot that we can just lay 300 feet of hose out and not impact other people. Training facility where we can practice with the ladder truck, we can do extrication, and we're not borrowing and trying to steal spot on land, gravel, whatever, to try and do what we need to do. Right now, we've got some trainings coming up. We're lucky to have a house out on it's out in the town of Dunn. We've got a house that we're practicing in, and we can do some stuff, but we'll be burning that in November. Otherwise, there's a tower down in Edgerton we go to, or it's up into MATC. So it really limits us being able to do the department as a whole, because only half of us can leave the town at any maximum at any time as we try and do these things. And we're doing a study for it, but future facilities, we're working on the public safety, trying to figure out planning for space for police, fire, EMS in the future with the growth of the city and everything. Main Street is becoming a very difficult place for us. Not as much to get the trucks out somewhere, but it's trying to get the volunteer staff that are responding from home into the station to get onto the truck. So that Main Street from the bridge to 5th Street really gets choked down twice a day, generally down to 10, 15 miles an hour. And next, just kind of a map. I throw this up. These are all the different members of the department and where they live plotted out on a map using Google Earth. And just to kind of illustrate where everybody is, there's a little flame there showing where the fire station is at. And that's where people are trying to respond in from to get here for calls. So we do have a number of people that live out in the township at various points, but that is it. Entertain any other questions?
You got a question, Mayor?
No, and I would just add, we are having conversations about potential land acquisition that are not included in the CIP. I would say we're at the earlier stages, but that could ramp up. So we'll see how that goes.
I was going to let the mayor bring it up if it was appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll see where it takes us. And you know, the main thing right now would be the EMS because of the pending, you know, utilities building sale in a couple, 3 years. We're at a point where we've interviewed consultants for the new EMS or the new utility building, and we should be selecting one anytime now. And we met again this morning to kind of go through the presentations we received. Once we get through that, then we're going to be looking, you know, for site selection for the utilities building, and I think that's going to start accelerating the process for, you know, what should we be doing facility-wise long-term. So we may have some additional requests for land on here. It's just too early to know what that looks like.
See things for future consideration in there, like as, you know, clearly it's a lot of expenses to come in there over the next couple of years, but as we get other developers approaching us for multifamily residentials, which add a lot onto your plate, to really let them understand or even be able to give them what a cost per unit would be, because, you know, we're getting close to, we're not at capacity, but I mean, we're getting up there in capacity on it, but to let them understand and to be able to calculate that into their project.
Right. Sorry, I'll stand close to the mic. I know there's been some discussions with some of the proposals that have come forth, and we've really tried to shy away from anything that is more elderly housing, because on a unit by unit basis, it just taxes the ambulance compared to a standard single family dwelling. And not that we don't want more, but we are at that point. I mean, between EMS and fire, we're just struggling to keep things rolling. We're doing better, but we're still not completely covering all of our stuff that we would like. So.
Yeah, and on the new developments, you know, we've been including Josh into the meetings to make sure that they have good access for not only coming in but leaving, which means we like to have less cul-de-sacs, right, or at least have them big enough where you can make the turn.
Right.
And the same thing for snow removal. And then, I mean, anything else that, you know, fire hydrant placements, you guys are pretty active.
Yeah, that's Brett and I have a lot of similar concerns when it comes to some of the roadways and how things get in there. Brett doesn't typically get past the curb line when it gets into the private side, and then it's just us trying to talk the developers into, instead of green space, we need a little more concrete or asphalt here, just so that we're not trying to back a truck up a long ways. Now, luckily, there's some NFPA standards that go along with that help guide that. And there's a change that happened at the state. So some of the building codes that have been held up in the 2012 version of NFPA 1 and the building codes are going to get updated here in September, which will help us as well. They're going to move up to the 2019 version of those codes. So there are some improvements as those made up that'll help us. So.
I know neither one of you are shy to tell developers about what you require out of them, but, you know, absolutely, like, hold them to it. That,
Right. And I will say, talking with some of my counterparts, it is amazing how well the city works with, I mean, everyone communicates amongst the city with all the same goals of safety. There are communities in the area that are growing, and the city leadership is actually doing everything possible to skirt some of the public safety rules that are out there, just to encourage more development.
no, I'm happy
Yeah.
with the line on that one because, you know, it's, we want to have a good product for everybody to be able to live in now and in the future, and not have to, you know, we already have enough things where we have to come back and patch this and fix that and, you know, do that.
Yeah.
But if we do it right the first time, then you don't have to go back and fix it again.
Right.
I'd also add, I appreciate that you brought up, yeah, you know, $2.5 million for a single rig is, oh my God. But that insurance rating is really important to every single property owner.
Mhm.
The better the insurance rating, it has an effect on your insurance.
Mhm.
So,
Yep. And from what I've understood through the insurance industry, the businesses are really where it's a markedly a bigger difference when those numbers change, good or bad. But which is that truck probably is more important in those. So
Christina, do you have a question for Chief?
I do. So when we develop a new neighborhood and we have to add public safety items such as severe weather sirens, who covers that?
So currently we pay for the siren, and then once it's built, tested, connected to the system, then we hand the keys over to Dane County and they take over all the maintenance of that siren. So the initial uptick is our cost, and the cost is for all the maintenance off into the future. Dane County takes that on. So we're just, any additions are our responsibility.
Going forward, we have had internal conversations about trying to pass that cost on to the developers in the agreements, as well as some of the concerns that have been brought about the quality of the soils in the park area. So those are things that we've been discussing and communicating with the city attorney about.
That's good to hear. And nice to know that great minds think alike.
All right, any other questions for Chief? All right, thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. Next.
The sheets. Is there any? So the only thing left in the packet for this meeting were the worksheets. And I don't know if there's anything that you want to comment on or highlight in any of them, or is it pretty much self-explanatory?
Yeah, not at this time. I mean, we printed them out for you, but they're available electronically for those who aren't here to have the paper copy. There's just the electronic ones.
Yeah, and I think the plan is to hear the rest of the presentations at the next meeting. It looks like we are going to move the time up.
Yeah.
What's that?
We have the finance and courts were still on the list for today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you're going to cover that.
You want me to go ahead? I didn't know we were going to eventually get back there. I wasn't saying anything. But finance just has one item. And this last year was out in 2027 or 2028 to move the financial software to the cloud. Last year it was about $130,000. Nicole Marie and I did a demo with BSNA Tuesday this week, and they were quick to get back to us with a quote coming in just under $82,000. So that is our request, is to move to the cloud. Obviously for finance, this is our bread and butter, but it's not just for us. The departments obviously use it too and employees as well, but departments heads would be able to have their own dashboard where they can easily approve timesheets, accounts payable, things like that without having to go to one module, log into one, and then go to another. It'll be on a dashboard. They can set it up how they like. We can set up a template to get them started, where they can see, you know, their budget, where it's at. So it'll be great for departments as well. And with employees, for all employees, there would be an employee portal that they could update withholdings, dependents, you know, make benefit election changes and more in there. Then it would go to approval for HR, so it would lighten the load for HR as well, with not having to enter all that data as well, which then lessens the chance for error with any entry. And what else? Personally, I really liked it. One, we wouldn't have to VPN anymore, so that's great. But the reporting capabilities too, just being able to easily select your fields, and so just really the accessibility of it, and creating efficiencies. So while there's not necessarily a large monetary savings by us doing that, I mean, as John explained, you know, maybe they can lower what they need for a server. But truly, it is just being more efficient and having accessibility. Nicole Marie can share her thoughts on it as well.
One of the features I thought was most interesting. So right now we have 10 different modules to BSNA, from general letter to HR to payroll to timesheets. This puts them all together. So when you search for something across the system, it searches through all 10 systems for something. So if we're looking for a street address, it looks in special assessments as well as accounts payable for any vendors with that address. If you search up an employee's name, it's going to come up with their timesheet, their personnel records, as well as if we had any reimbursements for them in AP. So it is really a lot more robust than what we have right now, which kind of piecemealed a lot of different things together.
And with that access, obviously, like we currently have, people that need access to certain information would only be allowed. So we can restrict access to what other people can see for employees. Department heads might want to see certain things. If it's any certifications or things like that can be housed in there, but obviously limit access to any through personal information or things they should see.
That kind of like a two-factor authentication to get into it
Yep.
too?
So, that was one thing I didn't mention is security, having it up in the cloud, not sitting on a server here. And then, yes, so there's a two authentication process, and they support different methods. There's the Duo, there's the Microsoft Authenticator. Yeah, they would have that.
All right. I mean, it seems like the efficiencies in itself among the departments is like, that would count for a lot of the cost of what the software would be. So, and then the added capabilities of reporting and function.
Any questions on that? Okay, so then for municipal court, same thing. Just they would be moving to a cloud base for their TIPS court software. So they don't have the actual cost yet. Right now, last year was a placeholder of $20,000. So we just kept that in there. They won't know the actual amount until about October of this year.
Do we know if we extend the juvie court out into the high school site? We haven't approved it yet, but we've talked about it. Would that add additional costs in there at all, or?
No, it would be the cloud base, so they could access it anyways. Yeah, so that's a benefit of it, just like us if we're home or wherever here, like not having to VPN into anywhere, so we wouldn't need that anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Then let's see. So we're not doing the item 8 discussion and possible action, or is that kicked out into the next one? Are we talking about that?
Typically in the past, it's been a discussion at the end after everybody's presented, but the option is there should you want to.
We've kind of asked all our questions going along anyway. And I think we have typically held where we'll start and pick and choose and things like that into the second meeting of it once we've heard all the presentations. Or at least what we've typically done. But there.
Can you walk us through the process for us new people?
For what part of?
Like, we'll hear all the presentations, and then what happens?
Then once we hear them all, then we can literally go through like line by line, like, yeah, I don't think that they need this year, or we're literally like taking a line item and we're moving it into either a future year, eliminating it altogether, or we just say, yep, looks good, vote, done. We've had all of the above.
Yeah, and I think as Lisa mentioned, some of the numbers will change when we get more quotes and information and get closer to these dates. Ultimately, this group makes a recommendation to the council, and then the actual budget to the council is the mayor's budget. So I could take your recommendations and I could either go with it or I could change that. Now, as a council member, if you don't like any changes I made, you could go back and do an amendment and add things back in or remove things. So, and then ultimately you would vote on it. More than likely, keep our fingers crossed, you would vote, it would be approved, and then I would sign it. If it was something real controversial, you could amend it, see where that takes it. I don't have a line item veto. I'm not like the governor. So I either have to sign it or I veto it. I haven't vetoed anything in 7 years. I hope I don't have to start now. But that's that answer your question.
Yeah, it does. And well, the follow-up question is, are we just focusing on 2026, or do we look at the 5 years?
You can look at the 5 years. As I said in the beginning, we did meet with department heads and reviewed their requests, and they had some in 2026. We did move some to 2027. So you might see an item that you feel this is important and should be this year. So I recommend looking at the full 5-year plan. But the main focus is, what are we going to do in 2026?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, whatever we decide to do, we're going to do notes probably for the CIP items, and then how do those affect the tax bill is usually the question the council members are going to have to answer to. Why did my taxes go up or down?
Yep, so it would be notes. There's no reason to issue bonds anymore, as they're more restrictive and a longer process, but notes can go out to 20 years now. And I did have Greg, our municipal advisor at Ellers, do a preliminary financing plan. It was based off of doing 13.1 million in projects this year. So it's a little higher. So the numbers would be a little different, but I planned on presenting some of that at the next meeting. And once we have set what we want to do, he can rerun those numbers and have that available. But we can talk about how it changed from while we were doing our 2025 debt issue this year, based off a 2025 budget 5-year plan, what's changed, and see what that looks like for an idea of, it was a lot. It was like 11 million in the 2025 debt issue financing plan. And if we're looking at 13.1, how that affects how much debt service levy we are doing.
Yeah, and especially at the next meeting when you get into like some of the streets, you can ask questions about priorities. They have a rating system that Brett will cover that you've probably heard at Public Works. A lot of it will be, we have the guideline that we're getting from Ellers. We have the capacity of what we can actually do, because we don't want to budget for more than we can do, because then we may end up either doing budget amendments or borrowing more we need to. We're trying not to do that. And then really it comes down to priorities, and that's where the feedback from from the CIP committee is really helpful to me. And, ultimately, whatever we purchase is going to end up being paid for through property taxes, not all at once. And I think you'll be able to explain how that works probably better than I can when we get to that point. But certainly at the end of the day, it's tax money. One of the things we did a couple of years ago is we eliminated the special assessment. So it'd be interesting to know what that would have been if we would have maintained that. I think in the past it would have probably been $300,000 to $400,000. Now we're borrowing for it, which increases the numbers, but it's more palatable to the property owners because you're spreading it out through the entire city instead of the actual person or neighborhoods where the work is being done. So it's a challenge, but I think what staff tries to do is just be brutally honest that we have a lot of needs and the price of everything continues to go up, and we want to have a community that is well maintained because we can see that the things that we've been doing the last several years has encouraged more people to want to come to Stoughton.
As an example, last year, I don't think the CIP committee made any recommendations to change. Last year we just took everything that was in it and then we discussed it in council. I think we might have pulled a couple things at council level, but that is, we have places, we have both here in this committee and again at council during presentation to, if there isn't something that we're certain about and we can move things around.
I have a question just to kind of tracking some different numbers. So in the presentation, the total projects target you said was 11 to 12 million. How is that number different than like the 13.1 or 13.5, or is the goal to try to reach?
The goal is to try to reach that. And with this situation with the TID 8 being like 2.4 million, if we go above that, it's not the normal thing. And really what that is trying to do is stabilize how much we're levying, as well as stabilize the debt rate, debt tax rate of that. So we're issuing 10 million this year, next year we're doing 15, and then the following year. So it's just kind of trying to maintain a certain level so we can maintain our debt. So as we're adding on, we're seeing others drop off, and we're not just continuously building and getting higher in our debt capacity. So it's just a recommended amount for those purposes, but to have, a large TID project, we have other just normal city projects that we need to do as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a good example of kind of a wild card. I mean, the hope is the project on the river for the development moves forward. If it does, that remediation amount may fluctuate, once we get in there and actually start the work. The RDA has been, working with the developer, and they're getting closer to getting an agreement. They had a meeting today with Ellers to talk about some of the TIF requests. So that continues to make progress. Some of the other wild cards would be things like the work in the river. We have to get the approval from the DNR to do the work. We're hoping that we'll have something by November. If not, and we don't have it when it comes time to issue the debt, then we have to make a decision. Do we issue it and hope it gets done next year, or do we amend the budget and take it out? The other one is the Jefferson Street Bridge is one where we have to complete some acquisition and do some land swapping in order to be able to fit the new bridge in there, because it has to be wider because of the new standards. We've executed kind of the first piece to that puzzle. That one, if we can't come to terms, that one might get delayed. It's still passing inspection, but we know it needs to be replaced at some point. We're hoping it'll be next year. So there's always some unknowns, I think, going into this is the best way for me to describe it.
And that's a good point. So what you approve, or what the council will eventually approve, the full council approve, that will change by the time we go to issue the debt. I mean, we started when we're going into the current year debt issue at 16 million. And dropped it, yeah. But that was, the TID 8 was in that. And because nothing was moving forward, we don't want to issue debt on money that we're just going to sit on and pay interest on that. So we moved it to the 2026 year. So things like that, as he explained, may even change. So you could approve projects now and something may cause it to change.
Thank you.
I think the lowest version number of a CIP plan, I think, was 8.
Did you research that?
I've just out of like my memory, I think. Yes, exactly. But I thought didn't Dave have one last year that was at like version 12?
Yeah, it seemed like we got in double
Oh my
digits
God,
last
yeah,
year.
It was a lot. Anyway, so. All right, any other questions on what we've gone through tonight? So at the next meeting on the 21st, which at least on this one, and you said we're going to move that one back to 6 versus 7, right?
Yes, Brett confirmed that
Okay.
it is canceled.
Perfect.
So we'll make that adjustment. That'll
Okay,
be at 6
so
p.m.
that one will be, and then we'll listen to presentations from Planning and Development, Library, Police, and Public Works, including Parks and Rec and Street, Stormwater, and Facilities.
I think that meeting will be a little longer than this one.
Yep. Yep. All right, that is all that we have for this meeting tonight, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
No, you go.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Sarah, is there a second?
Second.
Patrick,
Second.
second. Or Christina or Patrick.
Christina
Take your
can
pick.
have it.
Perfect. Fantastic. All in favor, aye.
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 Anybody want to hang around, oppose? Excellent. Thanks. All right. Motion's approved. All in favor, aye. Did we do it? Yeah. Sorry. See, now my memory's failing. Short term. I'm losing the short term. All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.